It's Muppeturgy with a very special episode about the Kaye Ballard episode of The Muppet Show, featuring our own very special guest star, Robbie Rozelle. Welcome back, everyone. We are almost there, almost to the finish line at the end of season 1. We're glad you're still with us. I'm David Levy. Here with me today are
Adam Grossworth,
Michal Richardson,
Christy Bauer,
and our own very special guest star, Robbie Rozelle. Hi, Robbie.
Hey.
Robbie is the A&R director of Broadway Records by day, cabaret semi-star and recording artist by night, podcaster every other Friday, and an all-around delight. Robbie, I'm so glad you're here with us. Let's start by hearing a little bit about your history with the Muppets.
I grew up with the Muppets. They came out, the Muppet Show came out the year I was born. So the Muppets have never not been in my life. I saw all of the films in the theaters growing up, and I definitely remember watching the Muppet Show in real time at some point during the run of it, and definitely in reruns ever since.
Nice and concise. Well, we are excited to hear what you have to say about this episode, which I think is a provocative one. But before we get there, Adam, where are we?
This is season 1, episode 23, the penultimate episode of season 1 in our production order. It was taped November 23rd through 26th, 1976, and it aired in New York on March 7th, 1977, and in the UK on January 23rd.
Introduce our guest stars, that's what I'm here to do. So it really makes me happy to introduce to you.
Kaye Ballard was a funny lady who did well in burlesque, nightclubs, musical comedy, television, and film, but never quite hit the A-list. Born in Cleveland in 1925, young Catherine Gloria Balota showed early aptitude in singing, as well as studio art and playing the flute. Following her graduation from high school, she enrolled in art school, but decided that while she'd never be among the greatest artists, she had a better shot in show business. She started out doing local gigs as a singing comedian, playing restaurants, nightclubs, and even burlesque houses. One of the club owners she performed for had a connection to comedy bandleader Spike Jones, the Weird Al of the 40s, and Spike told Kaye that if she ever came to LA, she should give him a call. So she did what any ambitious star-to-be would do and bought herself a one-way ticket. Lucky for her, Spike was true to his word, and she was soon touring with his band. In 1946, she left the band to make her Broadway debut in the revue Three to Make Ready. She continued to develop her club act and became a regular in the hip clubs of Greenwich Village. Her breakout role came in 1954 when she played Helen in the musical The Golden Apple, which transposed the story of the Trojan War to the U.S. Civil War. She introduced the song Lazy Afternoon and stopped the show.
It's a lazy afternoon, and the beetle bugs are zooming, and the tulip trees are blooming, and there's not another human in view but us two.
In fact, she was such a sensation in the show that Richard Avedon shot her photo for the cover of Life magazine. The show, while beloved by superfans, was not a hit, and her follow-up show, Reuben Reuben, closed on the road. That same year, she introduced the song Fly Me to the Moon.
Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, darling, kiss me.
But of course, Frank Sinatra ended up having the hit version of the song, and few remember Kaye's version. This would become an unfortunate trend in her career. She spent the next few years playing club dates and making guest appearances on TV shows. In 1957, she had her next real high-profile opportunity, playing one of the stepsisters alongside Alice Ghostley in the original Rodgers and Hammerstein television production of Cinderella starring Julie Andrews. This became the most-watched television show in history, seen by 107 million viewers, a record it held for decades. The following year, she made her big screen debut in the musical The Girl Most Likely To, playing Jane Powell's best friend. The film is mostly notable for being the final movie released as an RKO picture. It's not very good and features 2 different racist musical numbers, but Kaye is delightful, and there is a great dance number on a beach featuring a lot of hot shirtless men splashing each other. It's a very horny movie, but I digress.
Are they racist in different ways?
Yes, one is racist about Mexicans, and the other is racist about Native Americans.
Great.
In 1959, she released an album called The Fanny Brice Story and Song, which ended up inspiring the creation of the musical Funny Girl, which Kaye was not involved in. Her career took off in the 60s with a featured role on The Perry Como Show, followed by the only time she created a role in a Broadway hit when she played the magician's assistant, the incomparable Rosalie, in Carnival. In 1962, she and her longtime accompanist, Arthur Siegel, released a comedy album based on the Peanuts comic strip that provided the inspiration for what would become the musical You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, which she was not involved in. When she was on the Perry Como Show, Kaye's pal Fred Ebb and his writing partner John Kander offered her a new song called My Coloring Book. The producers of the show gave it instead to Sandy Stewart because Kaye was the comedian and Sandy was the singer. Sandy had a minor hit with the song, which was then picked up by Barbra Streisand, who had a somewhat bigger hit with it. Kaye understood, and Fred offered to write her a new song to make up for it. Maybe this time I'll be lucky, she responded, and Kander and Ebb came back with the song Maybe This Time, which Kaye introduced in 1964.
Maybe this time I'll be lucky. Maybe this time he'll stay.
Her recording didn't go anywhere, so Fred and John offered the number to Liza Minnelli, who believed they had written it for her, which Kaye discovered sitting in the audience of Liza's club act when she heard Liza sing the song. After all of Kaye's near misses, this felt like a big betrayal to her, and she stopped speaking to Fred Ebb for 2 decades. They did eventually make up. In 1965, she appeared in the off-Broadway hit The Decline and Fall of the Entire World is Seen Through the Eyes of Cole Porter, which was conceived and produced by eccentric impresario Ben Bagley. In the 60s, she made frequent appearances on Merv Griffin, Johnny Carson, Mike Douglas, and of course, Hollywood Squares. In 1967, she landed her biggest television role yet, co-starring with Eve Arden in The Mothers-in-Law, a new sitcom from Desi Arnaz. It ran for 2 seasons on NBC before being canceled. This meant it didn't produce enough episodes to be sold into syndication as reruns, so the show was largely forgotten, although now you can watch it on DVD and streaming. In 1970, she played a recurring character on The Doris Day Show, but that would be her last ongoing sitcom role until the 90s, when she was a main character on the 1-season syndicated sitcom What a Dummy. She would continue to appear consistently on game shows and variety shows and make guest appearances on sitcoms and dramas for the rest of her career. Her biggest Broadway heartbreak came in 1973, when she starred in the new musical Molly based on the sitcom The Goldbergs. She blamed the failure of the show on the ineptitude of the director and the inexperience of the writers, but the failure weighed on her for a long time. She wouldn't return to Broadway until 1981, when she took over the role of Ruth in The Pirates of Penzance. She continued to have small parts in movies, including the original Freaky Friday and The Ritz with Muppet Show guest star Rita Moreno, both in 1976. She never really stopped performing. In her later years, she made memorable appearances, including singing Broadway Baby in the Paper Mill Playhouse production of Follies and touring in the all-star 20th anniversary production of Nonsense with Georgia Engel, Mimi Hines, Darlene Love, and Lee Merriweather. In 2006, she published her memoir, How I Lost 10 Pounds in 53 Years. She officially retired in 2015. Kaye Ballard died at her home in Rancho Mirage, California on January 21st, 2019 at the age of 93. Later that year, a documentary about her life was released called Kaye Ballard, The Show Goes On.
Why don't you get me started?
Robbie, what did you think broadly about this episode before we get into details?
In the words of poet laureate RuPaul Andre Charles, meh. It feels like sort of a filler episode where, like, on paper, everything makes sense. Kaye Ballard makes sense with the Muppets, but probably because it's first season, it doesn't really take off the way it should, in my opinion.
Christy, how about you?
Yeah, the longer you think about this episode, the faster it evaporates into a fine mist.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's a weird hex around it. I can't explain it. It's a very weird feeling for the end credits to be my favorite thing in an episode, but it absolutely is in this episode. I I think the backstage plot pays off in the most delicious way. And everything else is fine. Like, not great, not bad, just
Michal?
Yeah, the end credits were my favorite part as well, and not for any, Statler and Waldorf type reasons. It was just a nice payoff. But yeah, now that we've seen what the Muppet Show can be, it's a little bit of a disappointment that we're kind of hitting a slump late in the season, or at least this episode feels like a slump by itself. And it feels a little disappointing, partly because Kaye Ballard is clearly very talented and very down to clown and is very comfortable with the Muppets, but just the pacing and the choices that they make for these sketches and songs and the way that they use her, it gets painful after a while. And then they slap One Note Samba in our faces. And you guys, I fucking hate One Note Samba. I just do not like that song, aside from the Muppet Show. Any place I hear it, I don't like it. I'm sorry.
David?
So I can't pretend that I like this episode better than anyone, but I think they were doing something that will pay off in season 2 that I want to draw our attention to. And I think it's why this episode fails, but also why season 2 gets better, which is that this is the first episode where the guest star is really and truly integrated into the backstage story. And I think what that means is that the backstage story becomes the best part of this episode. What it also means is that they miscalibrated how much else of the episode they would now need to fill up, which is why there's so many sketches that literally feel like filler, especially because they don't rely on a lot of their go-to sketches, right? Like if we had had a Wayne and Wanda and a veterinarian's hospital instead of a Venda face and the weird barbershop guy, if we had had an electric mayhem number instead of 2 fucking hillbilly numbers, I think those would have helped with the balance. But I want to give them credit for realizing that integrating the guest star into the backstage plot is the way forward, even if they didn't quite figure out how to make that work in the context of the larger episode as a whole.
Yeah, I agree with all of you. I think I did like this episode a little better, but it's weird. This is one of my favorite backstage plots, certainly so far. But also, like, maybe ever. I mean, I'm sure I'll eat those words because we've got a long way to go. But like, this is in the book that we've talked about, so I remember it really well. It's a great backstage plot. Kaye Ballard is totally game in a way that we have talked about past guests either being or very much not being. But it's some of the worst onstage stuff that we've seen so far. There are 2 numbers that I hate much more than One Note Samba. So I don't know. It's weird that it doesn't come together because I think all the pieces are there. So yeah, I don't know. Like I love half this episode and really dislike the other half of it. So let's get into it.
Hey, y'all, remember how last week we got to go on a scenic tour of the Great American Songbook?
That was fun. Can we do that again?
Yeah, no.
Nowhere to go but down.
Nope. Nowhere to go but down. As we've mentioned, there's a lot of hillbilly nonsense this week, and even me, native Kentuckian, can't defend most of it. Our first number is the return of the country trio.
In the summertime when all the trees and leaves are green and the redbird sings out the blue, cause you don't want my love.
Yep.
Oh wait, we don't even get Frank in the clip?
Dong 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 dong. There you go.
So this is a song that somehow managed to make its way onto the Muppet Show twice. We will get to talk about it again in season 3. It's
No.
The good news is the next version of it is better. I can confirm.
Can't be worse.
So this is a song that is known alternately as In the Summertime and You Don't Want My Love. In the Summertime is the official title. It's a Roger Miller song. The second appearance of the song will be in the Roger Miller episode. So we're not going to talk a whole lot about Roger Miller. Roger Miller was really hot when he was younger. That's a thing that we talked about in our Slack this week.
Dude.
We'll put it in the show notes, even though we're not going to get
we
there.
We learned some
for a
things
while.
this week.
Yep.
We're not going to make you wait for it, guys.
Is this the Roger Miller who wrote Big River?
Sure is.
Wow.
So this song was one of his earliest songs from 1960, and it was a hit for Andy Williams, who did not, unsurprisingly, do any of the mouth noise nonsense in his version, and it hit number 64 in 1960. I like the Country Trio. Of the two hillbilly numbers, this is the one that I would probably fall on my sword for.
I mean,
it's charming.
I don't disagree with that. If you have to you're going to make me choose.
I actually enjoyed this. We can fight about it, but it's when the Jim puppet scrunches up his little face and they all have their little hair bouncing around. I think it's cute. And when we hear the audio, it sounds very fraggly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The best part for me was the Frank Muppet who just like goes absolutely nuts headbanging when he gets his little solo, which, by the way, is pretty true to the Roger Miller original. Like that sort of weird scat thing. Like the first time I saw this, I was like, what the fuck? And then I listened to it and I was like, okay. The second best part is the Jerry puppet has these crocheted overalls that I just love. And it's just such a great little detail.
Yeah, I don't know why I have not had this visceral reaction to these puppets in the past. Like I get that they're modeled on the humans. Like there's something about this performance, and maybe it's just this song. I found them really off-putting in their mannerisms, like in their facial whatever, and like the accents are really extreme in a very put on way. Like I understand that Jim grew up in Mississippi, but like I don't know, there's something weird about it, and the particular way that they are singing the instrumental part while they are playing their instruments, I don't know. I hate everything about it. It made me slightly insane.
Well, there is something about the actual construction of the song that is sort of unnerving. Like the where the chord changes fall is not where your ear expects them. So, I mean, that's sort of my gripe with the song is it's just sort of like unnerving.
It made me think of Emmett Otter's Jugman Christmas. Like it very much put me in that right away. And I don't know if that's just because I watched that in July. I watched that film all the time. And there's something like charming about it, but yeah, it's not my favorite bit in this episode for sure.
But that makes sense to find that sensibility there. It's this joyfully folky aesthetic, as are Jerry Nelson's overalls.
It's also a number that I think I would like better if it wasn't the first number in the episode. And especially if it wasn't the first number in a Kaye Ballard episode.
Right.
Also, didn't the morsels say that this is the first time that American audiences saw the Country Trio?
Yes, at least on the Muppet Show, because they've been in the UK spot when they've been on the Muppet Show before. I did not care enough to bother to fact check this, but that is what the Muppet Morsels told us.
Right, they had appeared on American television before on, I believe, the Perry Como show, but this might be their first time in the Muppet Show proper.
So our next number features the marvelous Kaye Ballard. So if you couldn't guess from the voice, it's Kaye Ballard and Thog. Shout out to the Cleveland Muppets.
I feel like Thog is sort of a cut above the Cleveland Muppets. He was already a star by the time the Valentine show rolled around.
Yeah, but he's technically amongst their numbers. So
Sure.
I
But
mean,
so is Kermit.
yeah,
I mean,
and Miss Mousy, yeah.
Miss Mousie's firmly.
on a scale of Cleveland to not Cleveland.
So this is "Oh Babe, What Would You Say," which was originally performed by an artist named Hurricane Smith, and the writing of it is sort of in dispute. Hurricane Smith was the stage name of Norman Smith, who was a musician and producer who worked frequently with the Beatles and Pink Floyd. And according to some sources I found, actually his wife wrote it. She's credited in some places as E.S. Smith or Eileen Sylvia Smith. But when you Google her, she's only referred to as a lyricist. So my suspicion is that they wrote it together. But I want to definitely shout her out because a lot of sources just credit it to him. And yeah, don't.
That sucks.
That sucks. Yeah. As a female songwriter, yeah, fuck that. So this was number 3 hit, and Liza Minnelli's recorded it. And depressingly, if you Google Hurricane Smith, under there, people also ask, one of the questions is, what happened to Hurricane Smith? And when you click on it, it says death. Harsh.
Well,
It's coming for us all eventually, but
Inevitably.
Yeah.
I wonder if Kaye Ballard asked to do this number specifically to stick it to Liza.
Ooh, I like this theory.
And then I wonder if Liza somehow slipped a 20 to the costume designer to stick it back to Kaye.
oh my God.
We need to talk about this terrible dress.
I mean, and really, like, if you don't normally look at our show notes and you're not watching along with us, now is the time to go look at the show notes.
It's like she's wearing
Because
Liberace's camping tent.
She's wearing all of Baby Jane at the same time. And boots. It's
just
so bizarre.
a Christmas tree of pink tulle, just all kind of gathered in a way that doesn't make sense. And
it's architectural, right? Like it's...
Yeah.
And it doesn't even look comfortable. Like, normally I'd be like, great, she looks comfortable, let her live her life, but it doesn't even look...
She grabbed the tent from Carnival that she starred in on Broadway famously and wrapped it around herself. That's what happened. It's so ugly.
It's so bizarre.
I did wonder whether somebody had decided to like fill out her shape in a way that made her look more thog-like because she's dancing with this enormous puppet, but that doesn't make any sense.
But it just looks awkward because she can't get near him, which is actually a sort of a good segue. I love Thog, but I don't love Thog in this mode particularly because it's a little bit, he can't dance. And there were a couple times when I was sort of nervous that he was going to fall over. Like, it's a little bit too much for the puppet, I think. I mean, obviously it's not. And what do I know? Like, I'm a dummy with a podcast. Obviously they're very good at this, but like I don't know. A couple times it made me uncomfortable. And actually, I think her in the dress, because she also looks so physically awkward, only made it worse. That I was like, he's going to fall. She's going to fall. They're not going to do each other. I don't know. I didn't like it.
Yeah, with both of his arms kind of swinging free, it felt a little risky to the balance of the puppet, but also it let them do more with him, but it also kind of limited things because they had to be aware of his arms when they were choreographing.
Well, and the part of the shtick, right? Because like he hits her on purpose, like that's the joke. But like the feet too. The feet are sort of weird and wobbly. We should say this is Gillian Lynn is back as our choreographer of Cats and Phantom of the Opera fame.
The number feels a little manic, but then at the last minute, somebody said, "Kaye, can you just rein it in a little?"
Right. And Thog too, for that.
Because it feels like there's this mania to like her eyes and like every movement she's doing, like she's playing to the back row of, I don't know, Carnegie Hall. It's huge, but then somebody was just like, can you pull it back just a hair? And so it feels disjointed.
Yes, but also I enjoyed it. As much as I don't understand the dress and the energy is a little uneven across the number, it's fun to watch her have fun, and it's always fun to watch Thog, even if he's flailing more than he does elsewhere. Overall, I dig it with the note of what's that dress, but everything else is cute.
Right. This is my favorite number in the show, which is a low bar. But
All right. Well, then let's move on to something that I know Adam hates.
My shoes untied, but oh, I don't care. Ain't figuring on going nowhere. Oh, I just have to wash and comb my hair, and that's just wasted effort.
even the laugh track doesn't know what to make of this sketch.
Yeah. Is it a song? Is it a sketch? Is it funny? Is it unfunny?
It'll interest you to know that the writer and original performer of the song, Carson J. Robeson, began his musical career as a whistler. So,
Oh, well.
if that
Now I'm
if
interested.
that tells you anything,
I don't know what it tells me.
No one's got to make a Walter joke?
I mean, it's wide open.
That just shows what regard we have for that movie and that character.
yeah. So the name of this song, ? Is "Life Gets Tejas, Don't It?" This was our UK spot again with the hyper appellation in the UK spot. This is definitely not skiffle. This is straight up hillbilly nonsense. But it was a hit in 1947 for the aforementioned Carson J. Robeson, who was mostly known as a composer of event songs, which are songs about like tragedies. Like he wrote a lot of songs about like train wrecks, the wreck of the Shenandoah, the wreck of the number 9. He also wrote a song about the Scopes monkey trial, which I did not look up. But it's called the John T. Scopes trial. Maybe someday I will get bored enough to look it up. But
Oh my god, if I
Eric
can
the
find it,
Wind,
it's
the
going in the
musical.
show notes.
yeah. So according to the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, with a continuous studio career from 1924 to 1956, Carson J. Robeson is probably the most recorded singer-songwriter in country music history. And they also noted, ever alert to changing tastes, he wrote and recorded Rockin' and Rollin' with Grandma in 1956, the year before his death. I did look that up. It's fun.
I'm glad someone's having fun.
The most recorded singer-songwriter in country music history?
Yeah.
Have we heard of Dolly Parton?
Yeah. When did the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame write that copy, do you think?
It's a reasonable question that I don't have an answer for. So this is sung by Pa from the Gogolella Jubilee Jug Band, and it's just him. It's not the rest of the band. And him and a dog and pretty much everything as he sits in the rocking chair and complains just kind of happens around him, kind of slowly, kind of, I mean, not funny, really. It just kind of happens.
And it's not tedious. Like, right? Like the chorus doesn't even make any sense. I mean, what am I looking at?
I mean, it is tedious for the person watching it.
Right. But like, actually, his life is anything but tedious. His life is very action packed in tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if this is just the way it goes, sometimes his house falls down and he has to rebuild it. And that is a lot of effort.
We should say that it is spelled Teejus. I refuse.
See,
in the show notes, it will be spelled correctly.
Oscar Hammerstein could never.
So the next number we're actually going to talk about in the backstage plot, which is Floyd's Fugue for Frog. But we'll move on to our last number, which is Mihal's favorite, One Note Samba.
Why would you advertise that you're only using one note?
And then also lie about it. It's not even true.
Now the new one is the consequence, as the one we've just been through. As I'm bound to be the unavoidable consequence of you.
There's so many people who can talk and just enough, or nearly nothing. You have used up all the skill you know, when at the end you come to nothing, or nearly nothing.
So I come back to my first note, as I must come back to...
See, I love that, but I'm also a weird bossa nova nerd.
I'm with you, though. I think that they cracked the sort of mystery of the song by turning it into a challenge to it.
Yes, I agree. And to have Piggy as the challenger on the B section is an excellent choice. So this is One Note Samba, which is an Antonio Carlos Jobim song from 1962, from that period of time in which bossa nova really broke through. The original Portuguese lyrics were by Newton Mendonça. The English translation was by John Hendricks. And Jobim was often credited as the father of bossa nova. He wrote pretty much every major bossa nova song you can think of, including Girl from Ipanema, which is sort of the biggest one. And the song was recorded by many, many jazz and easy listening artists, including, yes, noted Joe Raposo Stan Frank Sinatra, who recorded it with Jobim himself on an album from 1971 called Sinatra and Company.
Nice.
They did a couple albums together, and if you like this kind of music, you cannot go wrong by seeking out the Sinatra Jobim collaborations.
It's true. He's also a noted Antonio Carlos Jobim stan.
We're going to have to add that to his description every time we mention Sinatra.
Go to his Wikipedia now and update it. This song lives in that line of like Johnny One Note and Mr. Monotony, all the composers who sort of wrote we only do this note, even though they weave in and out of it.
It's funny, I never thought of that as a genre, but you're totally right.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I will say Miss Piggy is very unsettling. She looks very unsettling this season, and her neck doesn't match her head, and it's very weird to me.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I have said that and edited out my comments saying it at least twice before, so now we'll finally get it in the episode.
Her neck is bright pink, and her face is like a dull off-white. It's very weird.
Sometimes it takes us a long time to learn how to blend, okay?
I understand. Listen.
Some of us are still working on it. But she shows up playing a kazoo, and that is pretty cute.
Yes.
What I love about this number is it gives you a sense of what Kaye was probably like at that era of her career when she was touring with Spike Jones. Because this is the kind of thing the Spike Jones Orchestra did. And to get to see her pull out all these different instruments and interact with the band, like, it's one of those, like, doing the thing that she does well.
I wonder if she brought this song to the show and said, I used to do this with Spike. It exists.
I suspect that whether or not she brought the specific song, she probably suggested the concept.
Yeah. I do like her outfit in that number.
Yeah, I mean, we have talked in past episodes and made many gifs of like some 70s-tastic clothing, of which we hardly approve on both men and women. It's just that dog dress that is a giant mystery.
Yep.
Yeah. She seems very bold and very comfortable. I'm for it.
Indeed.
Well, what's interesting is she wears two versions of this exact same outfit in this episode, because in the talk spot, she wears the same outfit, but in gray, and here it's in red and white.
I did not notice that. I'm going to look at the gifts right now.
It's definitely her, like, night.
Well, it's a very, like,
nightclub
1976. Yeah, caftan.
Yeah, she had to get one in every color, I guess.
Oh, I didn't make a gift of the
before she goes off to the Dinosaur golf tournament.
Right.
Ready! 3, 2, 1, fire!
It is time once again for a shot out of a cannon. Let's talk about our opening gags. We've got another recycled gag. Crazy Harry must have heard us call the last episode Dynamite, because he shows up to explode some here. Fozzie attempts a tasteless joke, but Miss Piggy appears and sets him straight.
Hey, have you heard the one about this very fat pig?
Have you heard the one about this very flat bear?
So I don't know if this is a milestone, if Miss Piggy is doing her own voice at the same time that another Frank character is on screen. Has this happened yet?
I don't remember. I think yes.
They weren't they both? They were both on stage for "Hey, won't you play another Somebody Done Somebody Wrong" song?
Yeah, they've done it musically, but
yeah,
right.
but as far as like a sketch, I don't think so.
But I feel like we've asked this before and said no, but they were on stage for "Won't you play another Done Somebody Wrong"
We've definitely seen two Jim characters interact. I just can't remember if we've seen two Frank characters interact.
Okay.
And I'm not 100% sure if that's Frank as Piggy. It definitely doesn't sound like the Richard Hunt Piggy that we all hate. But it's a lot close. If it's not Frank, it's a lot closer.
I'm not a fan of the Richard Hunt Piggy.
Okay. Yes. Hate was a strong word. It's great though. Like you can't quite hear it in the clip, but like Fozzie anticipates getting hit and makes this little sound. And then his hat goes flying off. I love everything about this.
I enjoy when Fozzie's hat is a character and a puppet in itself.
Yeah.
Anything from our Yay correspondent this week?
Not only does she not get a yay, she doesn't even get special as in special guest star. She is just guest star Kaye Ballard.
Aww.
Which, if I was a conspiracy theorist, which I am not, but if I were, I would say this plus that dress plus having to wear two versions of the same outfit in two other scenes. I'm wondering if maybe people at the Muppet Show decided pretty quickly that they maybe didn't enjoy working with her.
Oh.
Again, that's total conspiracy theorist. Like there's no evidence for that except for what I just
Or it's
laid
just
out.
the end of the season and everyone's tired and out of money. And
Also possible.
Yeah, they're like...
One of the Muppet Morsels at some point pointed out that for season 1, there were 4 people working in the Muppet Workshop in London, and they were frequently pulling all-nighters. And in season 2, that got up to, I think, 12, just to give a sense of the workload and like what happened when they were actually successful. Which has nothing to do with Kaye Ballard and her costumes and whether she's a very special guest star or not. But I think by this second to last episode in production order, I imagine everybody was exhausted.
I'm sure. Like one of the reasons we don't see so much of Gonzo is because Dave Gulls also worked in the workshop and they just really needed him there at this point.
Yeah. Maybe there was just no fabric left other than a giant pile of pink tulle. And they were like, well, guess she's going to wear this somehow. She does get a yay at the end of the episode.
Well, having settled that, I'd like a warm thank you to our special guest star, Miss Kaye Ballard. Yay!
Oh, she gets a special there too.
Yeah. Proper special.
Sounds like somebody pointed it out to Jim.
She had to earn it.
Yeah. I mean, she did earn it. She was working very hard.
Yeah.
All right. So in our backstage plot, the band is revolting, or at least the part of the Muppet Orchestra that is also the Electric Mayhem, led by Floyd, is, as he puts it, ankling.
Hey, but Floyd, the show is on. You should be in the orchestra pit.
Sorry, man. I'm ankling.
Ankling?
Yeah, ankling. You know, leaving. I've come to the coda. I'm using the door marked exit. Like a banana in the presence of ice cream, I intend to split. It's the theme song.
The theme?
Kermit, you are talking to Floyd Pepper, the hippest of the hip. I mean, I have a room for life at the home for the chronically groovy. And every week I have to come in here and play dun 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 dun.
Nice.
It's embarrassingly square. And I don't play square.
In a number of places across this episode, there are Muppets who sing their version of the theme song, and it is always cute to watch Kermit like bop along. Like he really digs it in a nerdy old dad way, and that's always fun. He's into it. But Kermit gets what he refers to as a stay of execution. So the band agrees to stay for Kaye Ballard's number, and then they agree that they'll stay beyond that number if Floyd can write a new theme song, which Floyd assures Kermit that he will despise.
If I can write the new theme song.
Oh, that'll be fine with me.
No, it won't, man.
Why not?
You'll hate my music. You won't understand it.
Now listen here, I'm pretty hip too, you know.
Not hip enough. Nobody understands my music. I mean, I don't even understand it.
You don't?
If I didn't know I was a genius, I wouldn't listen to the trash I write.
The trash he writes, we learn, is Fugue for Frog. So let's hear a clip.
It's called Fugue for Frog.
See? I already love that part.
Good, because you'll hate the rest. Hit it!
first.
It says what the product does. It is the Muppet Show.
It sounds to me like the Tonight Show theme in the 80s, and I was here for it.
Yeah.
In the Muppet Wiki, I forget exactly what they say, but something like, it's reminiscent of Frank Zappa's sound at the time. All right.
Dr. Teeth's face while they're playing this is so funny. I don't know. It made me very happy. And this is such a stupid thing I'm about to say, but because they've set up the band backstage for this, and Dr. Teeth's keyboard has chords coming out the back, which is like just the kind of detail that they did not need to do. Like, I wouldn't have noticed if they weren't there, but I noticed that they were, and I love when they go that hard on the props.
Somebody pulled an all-nighter to make those cables happen.
Yeah.
Do we have any musical analysis of Fugue for Frog, Christy?
No, I agree with Robbie's sentiment. It sounds like the theme to like whatever late show comes on at 1:30, you know?
Right.
Yes. Conan.
Like I definitely had that feeling of like, I'm too awake to be hearing this right now.
I love it. I wish they'd kept it. Or like dropped it in for certain guest stars.
To me, it sounds like something that maybe they wrote to use for the Sex and Violence pilot, where Electric Mayhem is very featured, and maybe it's just been kicking around, and they found an excuse to deploy it here.
So the reconciliation does not work. The band ends up leaving anyway, leaving Rolf to play the closing credits all by himself.
Well, you must admit, Nigel, this does sound a little square.
Play, hound, play.
Rolf is doing his best.
Nigel, I really have to say, Nigel is also unsettling to me because often they shoot him from behind and you can see his eyelids on the back of his eyes, but you also then see white going into like his bald head, and it's just bizarre to me. It was very unsettling.
Yeah, you don't want to think too hard about the construction of Muppet faces or how their skulls work, but here we are.
Here we are.
I also love that when Ralph has a solo on stage, he has a beautiful grand piano, but that the one that he plays down in the orchestra pit is rinky-dink as fuck.
It's so out of tune.
So honky tonk.
Ralph loves an out-of-tune piano.
Is that what it sounds like in the closing theme normally? Like, is that continuity or no?
I don't think so.
Tracked it before.
I think they made a point of making it sound extra like, silent movie rinky-dink.
Right. He also makes a point of playing it extra square. Like, as you said, throughout this episode, we hear people sort of grooving on the theme and like humming it and getting into it. And this is like the most like on the beat version of it you could possibly play. It's like that song can swing, but not here.
Yeah, no, Ralph is just going to play what's written. Maybe this is some kind of solidarity. It's like, all right, Frog, I'll stay and I will play this music. Boy, howdy, will I play it.
I wonder a lot about Rolf's relationship to the band members of Electric Mayhem because he plays with them a lot, but we don't ever really see them interact. Like, they don't really ever do dialogue together. And they have another keyboard player, so I don't know. Do you think Rolf is sort of like, these kids, or does he like being with the band, or I don't know.
I think maybe he's like the grumpy guy who plays with the band, but doesn't go out with them after.
Yeah, he's like a session guy who just goes home.
Yeah, to watch All in the Family.
But you would have thought that, we only see Trumpet Girl in the orchestra pit usually, and now she seems to be aligned with the Electric Mayhem. And we also get her only line of dialogue where she says, Drag City, and it's very cute.
Speaking of very cute, at the very end of the episode, apparently there are different versions of what the last shot is, depending on where it aired or where you watched it, but at least on Disney Plus, the last shot we get is of the Electric Mayhem backstage. But if you're paying attention, Kermit is sitting up on like the second level with his feet outstretched, and he's like waving at the camera like a little kid. It's really funny and really cute and totally inexplicable.
It's very cute. There is a GIF in the show notes. What was the other version? What did the wiki say was the other version?
The other version just ends with Nigel and Rolf.
Ah, okay.
And not this glamour shot for the Mayhem.
I appreciate that they bothered, right, to have that continuity, and because like it's basically a whole extra sketch that they had to record music for and film, because normally the closing credits are the closing credits.
Honestly, better than Life is Tejas.
Yeah.
They put in some effort this episode. It paid off in strange ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody find themselves trying to replicate with your wrist the way that Floyd moves in and out of frame? Because it's really fun.
No, but I know what you're talking about.
I thought about it, and I made a gif of it, but I didn't try to actually do it, but I did. It did occur to me that was difficult, the way that he walks.
I was trying to figure out how to describe it, because it looks like he's being like motivated from his clavicle. Like he's being led by the chest onto the stage, and his head is just sort of bobbing and following him. We also have this weird little running gag where Kermit keeps taking falls on stage for reasons that are never explained, which is delightful, because Muppet slipping and falling is always delightful. But I don't know if this was, written into some other episode and got moved to this one, or there was a sketch that was recorded and we just never got to see, or there's an icy patch on stage. But he keeps falling. It's great.
Made me laugh every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, super cute.
Yeah, I'm for it.
Muppets falling, funny.
Always. Right, well, let's talk about the sketches. We've got a Muppet News Flash. Kaye Ballard plays Ms. Gretchen Powers, who is trying to set the world record for the longest sentence ever spoken. They set up this joke with the newsman is about to interrupt her longest sentence, and he keeps trying to interrupt her, and then instead they go for a less funny joke with a commentary about how she's driven her husband insane. There's no payoff.
Also, it's not a sentence. She's just speaking gibberish. There's no structure whatsoever. It makes it crazy. Words have meaning.
I guess if you just keep talking, does that count as setting the record for the longest sentence?
No, it's not a sentence.
That is certainly not a sentence.
This sketch bored me so much, I forgot that there was any payoff, because just like when she starts talking, I tune out.
But there's not really payoff.
No.
Payoff is a strong
She
word.
is dedicated, at least.
Yes, that's exactly what I had written down. Kaye Ballard is like committed to the bit and acting for the gods, but my God.
Yeah. Other than Kaye Ballard's performance, there's nothing here.
Yeah. Just word salad.
Just word salad.
Honestly, my whole career, just word salad.
And meanwhile, at the dance, we've got Muppets insulting each other. We've got a loud lady bit, which I got very excited when I saw the loud lady on the screen. And then she said a thing that wasn't even funny. And it wasn't their usual joke at her expense. It was some other thing that wasn't really a joke. But we've got Miss Piggy whispering sweet nothings to Kermit in Italian and then claiming it's Pig Latin. And the way that she literally falls over laughing at her own joke and then gets up and falls over again is wonderful. I'm for it.
So I said to him, "What kind of a girl do you think I am?" I told him I never wanted to see him again. Never, never, never. Do you think I did the right thing, Herman?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
Il canto e l'amore, my bambino. Oh,
Is that Italian?
no, it's Pig Latin.
Kermit looks disgusted and she just keeps going.
It's so like the contrast between their two faces is so good, and like people in the background looking at them.
And she's thrashing around, which makes me wonder if this is also just another way that Frank is fucking with Jim.
That sounds right.
George and Mildred are in this at the dance too. And Mildred is an asshole to George, and George gives as good as he gets this time, which I did kind of appreciate. I mean, I'm generally team Mildred, but she's really classist to him sometimes, and I don't care for it.
Yeah, I mean, the way George laughs at his own joke feels a bit much. But.
I mean, they're being mean to each other in a way that is sort of uncalled for. They could just be nicer to each other.
Yeah, have they tried being nicer to each other?
Well, we know their relationship is doomed.
Yeah.
Is it, or do they retire somewhere together?
To Cleveland. So in the talk spot, Kaye offers to help Kermit resolve his issues with the band since she is a bit of a musician herself, which she says so kindly, and then we see her play like 5 instruments in one note samba. She's a bit of a musician. But she calls in Animal, and we get to hear him sardonically kind of yelling the theme song while Kaye and Kermit bop along to it, which is also great.
Now listen, why are you guys so unhappy?
Oh,
No Oh, well, you've got a point. I'm willing to say you have a point.
But Kaye and Kermit are into it, and it's very sweet. Animal does not agree with Kaye's point, and he attacks her. She tells him his problem is with Kermit, so he attacks Kermit, which leads to this whole battle between them. They pop behind the wall and pop back up with Animal having Kermit in a leg lock, and Kermit comes back up and he's all squished down into a little ball, which is fun. There, that's the end of what I have to say about it. I wrote in here like, oh, I'm tired, but that's because I have to write more about these 2 comedy sketches that are coming up.
Sure.
Yeah, Kermit comes up, squished into a little ball, which is fun. And, Animal communicating with eyebrow waggles and head gesticulations and yelling the theme song is fun.
Yeah, this whole bit is like a really good scene for Kaye Ballard to be Kaye Ballard and just like mug at a camera. Kaye Ballard has always reminded me of like Linda Lavin and Martha Ray smushed together. And so it's just like a lot of teeth and eyes, and I'm very fine with it.
The good fit for the Muppet Show.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's Muppety in her way.
Right? Teeth, eyes, hair.
Yeah, those are the defining characteristics of a Muppet.
Occasionally a nose, but just
but not
mostly teeth, eyes, and hair.
Yes.
Yeah, they should have made her a Kaye Ballard Muppet to take home.
She's basically a walking Hirschfeld, so and I enjoyed it. It made me laugh.
Yeah. Oh, now I want to see a cartoon of that horrible dress. All right, let's talk about this barber sketch. A very shaggy creature comes into a barbershop and asks for a short haircut. He says his rock group broke up and he wants his hair cut really short, and the barber keeps cutting until there's nothing left. And it is a very visual gag, so we don't have a clip for you. But even with the visuals, it's very drawn out, and they keep cutting back to Statler and Waldorf saying other things that aren't jokes. It's very strange.
It's also a joke that you know the punchline of the minute you see the setup.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was fresher in 1977, but...
Or, for children.
It's also interesting because this is where Statler and Waldorf really get used, because there is no Fozzie in this entire episode, basically.
Yeah, if Fozzie had been the barber, this would have been a very different sketch.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because it's a technical problem, because they have to keep cutting away to swap out the shaggy creature puppet for a smaller version.
Right.
But it's not a very elegant way to do it, and it just kills the pacing to cut to Statler and Waldorf.
Yeah, they could have done this with editing, I feel.
Oh, yeah. That's cut to the barber, cut to anything else.
Right.
Just green flying around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there is less and less of the customer, and then he disappears, and the barber sneezes, and he lost a customer at the end.
Yeah, really got to collect payment before.
Yeah.
Continuing our ongoing thread of union questions, labor questions, the Muppet Theater, George is consistently being asked to clean things up on stage. That should not be his job. Is there no crew at the theater?
He's a janitor. If it's not his job, who else's job is it?
That's correct.
Stage crew, the PA, the assistant stage manager, Scooter. quite literally Scooter. This is not. He's the janitor.
There's one mop, and
on
he's
stage
got it.
and backstage are two different things in my professional experience.
This is also a scooterless episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then there you go. George has to do the onstage cleanup.
You wanted to be in showbiz. This is showbiz.
Yeah.
George was asked to remove a body from the
Again.
stage.
Which is,
Let's not forget.
Which is funny because we know they have paramedics hanging around.
Well, now they do. I guess they hired them later after several accidents.
So we've got a whole other comedy sketch. It is the intended use of Vendaface, the world's first fully automated facelift machine. It's a whole thing. One Muppet, played by Frank Oz, comes up and gets her monstery features removed and replaced with more mainstream or prettier ones. And then Muppet number 2, played by Aaron Oscar, sees this and loves it and steps up and then gets all the features that came off of Muppet number 1. So she comes away looking like a monster. Alas.
Next.
It's very dark.
Yeah. Her scream is great. That ominous next is great. It is cool that these arms come out of Vendaface and, you know, a puppet has to pop off all of the features from these 2 other puppets and stick them back on. And that sounds very tricky and very impressive. And it also it takes a long time.
It really does. This is the Vendaface. I mean, I guess there's one next week too, which I haven't watched yet. I mean, I have in my life, but not for this. So maybe next week's is better. But like this is the Vendaface gag that I remember. I do not remember it taking this long.
Yeah.
Like it really drags.
I liked it. But I was just so engrossed in watching it all happen that I was like, oh, there go the eyes. There goes the hair. And I was just like drawn in by that. Mostly because I don't remember this episode until I watched it for this podcast. It was as if I was watching it anew, and I was delighted.
There are satisfying sound effects. At least you're not just watching this in silence as we were with the barber, but yeah, you're seeing the eyes come off and you're hearing these little pop or squishy sounds. Yeah. So they're trying to make it fun. It is fun.
I find Vendaface terrifying. I know I said this the first time that Vendaface popped up, but I can actually pinpoint what it is that I find terrifying about Vendaface. And it's the voice, which I feel like is like at the intersection of like Hal from 2001 and the Daleks from the old school episodes of Doctor Who. Like the very like level, even Jerry Nelson voice put through that ring modulator. Fucking terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's very 77. And the hands too, right? There's something very like original Cylons.
Yes.
About those hands. Like the whole thing is very 70s sci-fi. Yeah. And it just from a puppetry standpoint, like those hands are what fascinate me for all the cutting in the barber sketch, that like it seems to be live, and it seems that those gloves are assembling that puppet's face. Like I know it's all adhesive. It's not like he's sewing a puppet together, but like, I don't know, just the mechanics of that. It doesn't seem like he would have a lot of fine motor control in those gloves. Mm-hmm. And yet he is able to stick that whatnot together. I find it impressive. Anyway, I just wish it were slightly faster and funnier, but I do think it's a cool, like, because it is creepy. Like they succeed in making it ominous and weird, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do we need to talk about the fact that there are so many jokes about makeovers and facelifts and haircuts and fat pigs in this episode?
Oh.
I mean, just in general, it would be great if there were a woman on the writing staff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like just in the world in general.
Absolutely.
It does feel like these were the sketches that should have been in the Phyllis Diller episode paired with that backstage story, which was all about Hilda wanting a makeover.
Mm-hmm.
It's so, like, I don't know if, again, we've talked a lot about, we don't know to what extent these sketches were written in a modular way and filmed in a modular way and then mixed and matched into episodes versus conceived and written for a specific episode. I mean, they couldn't have been filmed too far apart because we know what the production schedules were, but it does seem like like a lot of these sketches belonged in a different episode.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can think of sketches from other episodes that would have fit better with Kaye Ballard's backstage story, but I don't know. That was a weird mismatch.
Is there any universe in their production schedule where they might have made the Vendaface for the Phyllis Diller episode and then, I don't know, not finished it in time? Or is there any way to explain why they used the Venda Buddy concept first instead of the clearly intended purpose of Vendaface?
The only thing that I could come up with is I wonder if there was any kind of scheduling trouble with the guest stars themselves. And maybe at some point, this was the episode that Phyllis Diller was supposed to be on. And then one of them had a schedule problem and they were able to swap schedules and drop them in. And that might also explain why they both had these very similar band numbers.
So, fun fact, when we were at the Museum of the Moving Image, one of the things on display is the list of the season 1 guest stars, like the production dates, and all of their names are written in pencil, and something was erased under Kaye Ballard. I took a picture of it, and I'm looking at it right now. I can't tell what. It might have just been that Kaye Ballard and Mummenschanz were swapped because something was also erased under Mummenschanz. So this is not super helpful, but something was erased under Kaye Ballard. So your theory might be correct that things were swapped around.
So even though she didn't appear on Scooby-Doo, we still have a meandering mystery that doesn't go anywhere.
We do. And I'll post this in the show notes just because I think it's neat.
All right. We have come to the end of our discussion. Does anyone have sort of final wrap-up thoughts about this?
Encore! Encore! Man, you're not so loud. They may hear you.
No, it was fine.
And the truth is, this is what played Kaye Ballard for most of her career, right?
Yeah.
She was a very talented lady who ended up in fine situations.
She was never like when you get tapas, there's like dishes that you like are devoured, and then there's like the potatoes. This was the potatoes.
How dare you?
Where's the fucking lie, though?
Slander potatoes.
You
I thought you were upset we were slandering Kaye Ballard.
No,
because she is, and again, like I said at the top of the episode, on paper she makes perfect sense for the Muppets, but the Muppets didn't. She didn't let the Muppets down. The writers of this episode let her down.
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah, but also like the parts that she was in are all perfectly fine, and she's part of the backstage plot. It's just all of the parts that aren't the backstage plot and aren't her just kind of bring everything down.
Yeah, just fine.
Yep.
All right, before we go, Robbie, give us some plugs. Where can people learn more about you and experience the Robbie Roselle experience?
You have experienced the Robbie Roselle experience. I am very easily findable. I am Diva Robbie on all platforms. I have a delightful live album out that's like half stand-up and half musical theater tunes. So if you like musical theater tunes, you'll like me. And I co-host a
podcast. That album is called?
Oh, Songs from Inside My Locker, live at Fine Signs 54 Below. You were there, I think, for one of the nights. Yeah. It's good. I like it.
I endorse it. It's fun.
See? There you go. I wish you had seen the show the other night because I sang from Sesame Street. Anyway. I have a podcast every other Friday called Gay Card Revoked with Rob Schneider, not the Rob Schneider that you immediately thought of, but another one, where we are talking about gay totems that people may have forgotten about.
And this is also something I endorse. I am a devoted listener. Robbie, if someone was going to drop in and take a sample, which episode would you recommend they choose?
I like a lot. I like the Big Business episode. And the Queen episode, I think that we just did, is really good.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Muppeturgy. Join us next week for our Season 1 finale when we discuss the Mummenschanz episode. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Muppeturgy or on the web at Muppeturgy.com. If you like what we're doing, Please spread the word. Our theme music was composed and performed by Christy Bauer. Our show logo was created by Todd Bryan Backus. And this episode was edited by me, David Levy.
Well, you must admit, Nigel, this does sound a little square.
Playhound, playing.
I just didn't want you to think I had gone offline or something.
Adam isn't talking. Something must be wrong.
I mean, it's rare for me. It's rare for me to be silent for that long.
What if you were just fuck
wrong.
Kaye Ballard and just threw your microphone?
Fuck Robbie Rozelle. Where did we get this
Honestly, unclear.